welcome back. We now will call to order the Village Council meetings work session for March 11th, 2025. We will take up a couple of items here on discuss general business, and then if we have an interest, we can also bring other topics aside from these two. But these are very serious issues and ones that we have touched upon in the past. So the first item is going to be item A, which is a discussion regarding Focus Area 5 and potential collaboration with other jurisdictions. So, Doug, you want to remind us about where Focus Area 5 is and who are the potential jurisdictions that we really need to be thinking about, other than the county for sure. But
Yep. Okay, so here is our zoning map. So this is 211 running along here, and these are Focus Area 5 is specific to these parcels that are in pink and this one R30. So that is the Focus Area 5, and this is right along Pine Wild, so the area between the Pine Wild residence and 211 there. Right now, those areas are all vacant. So Focus Area 5 was something that came out of the comprehensive plan, and basically they said, focus on this area, figure out what you want to do with it. So we are asking Kimley Horn to focus on this area and to give us recommendations on what should be done with it. And I think we're all in agreement that that's what we want to do. More of this discussion, I was actually thinking, what do we want? Well, the north side of the road is a combination of Taylortown and the county. And I'll kind of zoom up on, yeah, so Taylortown is the green, the county is the grayish, and the village of Pinehurst is the brownish color.
okay, yeah, could you leave that there for a minute just to?
And Doug, is there a small piece there below Westgate on the south side of 211 that is county? Yes, right there.
Yep.
That's AEP owns that. It's like leftover from the rerouting of 211 when they rebuilt it in 2011 into a 4-lane road.
And who owns it, Jack?
AEP, the same people own Pine Wild.
Oh, it's owned by the company that owns the land. Okay,
I believe it's AEP. It could be someone else.
but it's not held by
A little sliver.
private companies.
Yeah.
Okay, so just so I really get my visual bearings here, Abington Drive is the one across from the church, or is that not the one across from the church?
That is Abington right there you're pointing at. That's the one-way, or the entrance for residents only.
Yes.
Yes.
And almost across from it, although a little bit to the south, is that small apartment complex.
Yeah, it's Sweet Ashley Drive.
I'm thinking of the First Baptist Church.
You're thinking about the main exit or the main entrance and exit for Pine Wild, which is the 211 entrance. That is to the left off of this map.
Oh,
Okay.
it's much further down.
Yeah, so Juniper Road is that angled road that comes in near the left, right there.
Yes,
Correct, and Doug's got that. Okay.
I see.
And there's not a gate there.
Correct. So it's farther to the left. It's basically 300 yards from that intersection to the left. So it cuts it off.
And is Abington exit there, is that not used as widely as the other one that we can't see? Dr. Morgan, is that?
It is
That's
not
a
used
resident
nearly as
only,
much.
yeah. So
All your main traffic comes in through the 211 gate, not there. That there's nobody guarding that gate.
No,
And-
there's no
and-
gatehouse. Okay.
Yeah, so those are pretty much residents who live right around that area are using that
Okay.
gate.
my intent of this map is really to show that the area we're concerned about is really all county jurisdiction. There's this one lot that's vacant in Taylortown right now, but it's zoned, I believe, R40, something like that. I don't think it is nearly as much of a concern as these areas along here.
Hmm.
So,
Have there been people opining or discussing what they might want to do in that Moore County side of the map that we just saw there?
yes. So this is the current zoning of Moore County.
Okay.
So the blue is business districts, the red is residential.
And
Then
the one zoned BZ2 CZ has a approved small almost a strip mall kind of business that has been approved like 3 years ago by the county, but nothing has ever happened. There was a sign put up there, but he's never been able to find a tenant for the building, so the building never got built.
Okay.
But otherwise, along the blue there, you got a variety of businesses starting from Juniper Creek. You've got you got a couple small office buildings. You have a Dollar General. You've got a couple other buildings. You got a landscape or a garden center. You have a child care facility. There's a couple other office buildings. Ward Productions is in there, and a couple other firms. So it's been semi-populated with small businesses along that blue area. The residentially zoned area they're vacant right now, and they're pretty big parcels,
Yep.
30-plus acres.
What is R5 in the Moore County
Those are-
zoning world?
That's R5 zoning is residential 5 acre or 5,000 square feet.
That's a 5,000
So
square feet.
those are small lots.
Small lots, okay.
And in the purple on the south side, are there some very thin properties in there and a number of very thin?
Yeah, that's an interesting comment. I met along with the mayor a few years ago with a gentleman from, I think it's from Apex, North Carolina, who owns a couple of the very larger parcels. And he assured me that he insured the mayor and I that the other parcels are owned by affiliated people and or companies, and that we shouldn't go under the assumption that they can never be recombined. Let me put it that way. So just because there are a lot of slices in that along that road doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be developed. So I think hoping that it won't be is not a good plan. I think
What, any speculation, Jack or Dr. Morgan, why no one has tried to develop that strip on 211 on our side of the road? I'm calling
It
been
would be
like that for a long time.
it would be speculation, but I mean, the question is if it's zoned office professional, does it lend itself to that? It's a little bit, it is a reasonably narrow compared to some parcels, and it does have power lines through it, so there's some access issues, as well as I think NCDOT would like to see any development have the minimum number of curb cuts, so that they would be combined into one larger parcels, and they can only have one curb cut entering the facility.
There are not railroad tracks along here. The
No,
railroad has
no,
turned south.
the railroad tracks are are farther away, considerably farther away.
They're either farther up to the west or farther south
Right,
from
they're
this
farther
map.
south, right.
They go right through Pinewild.
And there's nothing pending now?
No, nothing's coming before us.
No.
So I think Jack's exactly right. I think those are the very reasons why development hasn't happened there.
Regardless, I mean, the interest in Pinewild goes back to, I think it was precipitated primarily when NCDOT changed it from a rural 2-lane road to a divided highway 4-lane road. This was in the 2010-2012 time frame. At the same time, a couple of those larger lots closer to the 211 gate were clear cut. And suddenly it revealed to the residents of Pinewild, who sit a little higher than the road, what their view is of the potential development, and they become quite concerned. And so what you had is a group got together in Pinewild and constructed, if you will, built a scenario that they would prefer to see the office professional development in that area be similar to the office professional district over on Morganton Road. What's that?
Turnberry?
Turnberry Woods, right. And so they constructed a scenario with different uses, with different setbacks, with different parking, with a lot of different setbacks. And they tried to get the village to possibly use those criteria to apply to all office professional districts within within the village, and that wasn't going to fly. So the better alternative was to create an overlay district that could be set upon that area, and that overlay district would have limited uses, would have different setbacks, would have different landscaping and lighting requirements, and such that it would potentially develop that area so that it's more compatible with the residences in Pinewild. And so that was the hope. So unfortunately, it didn't really happen right away. The closest we've come is to have in the comprehensive plan a statement designating this area as a potential for an overlay district. And that's as far as we've gotten so far.
Yeah, and the hope is that as we work with Kimley Horn, we'll either have a underlying zoning change or we have an overlay district that appropriately addresses all those issues. So,
Find ourselves of what's all involved to get to this.
Yeah,
To an overlay.
has to do with that area is within our ETJ, of course. Now the other side of the road is a little different. That's county zoning, and the entire side of the road is controlled to an extent by the county highway overlay district. I think it's urban transition, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
Highway overlay district, which extends from our border in Pinehurst all the way out to actually the Montgomery line on 211. So it's both sides of the road where it's county controlled. And that is their highway overlay district.
That's theirs.
Now,
Now, if hypothetically we wanted to go from potentially designating this as a highway overlay district for us, our side.
yeah, but that would be separate from the county highway
Okay.
overlay
All right,
district.
so we were doing our own. What are the hoops we'd have to jump through as a community to get there?
To get to a highway overlay district, I think we utilize the PDO rewrite, UDO development process as a way to build a highway overlay district, at least on paper. Once that's approved and it is a overlay district and it's viable and it looks viable, then if it becomes part of the PDO, then we may or may not choose to apply it to this area.
If we choose to apply it, can we do that singularly?
Yes, we can choose to apply an overlay district to parcels if we choose. And of course, the state allows us a little bit.
Right.
well, yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. That
That's
SB
fine.
382 is going to be most impactful in this area.
But there isn't a county involvement in this?
No, this
No.
is all our ETJ.
Us
We
and the state, unless the state objects. Okay.
But the other thing that Doug mentioned, I think it's a good comment, was we do need to stay in touch with the county, and if in fact they are receptive, consider potentially some small changes to their highway overlay district in this area. By the way, in 2019, the county, I think at that time they had 3 highway overlay districts, and they wanted to consolidate to 1. And so they actually came to all the municipalities, and we spent a lot of time talking to the county as to what we would prefer to see in the highway overlay districts that they control. In fact, this was in July of 2019. I happened to be on the council at that time. We had a very long, active work session with the county, recommending certain uses, recommending changes in the setbacks and building criteria and so forth. And they were very, very receptive to that, and in fact ended up incorporating a lot of the municipal requirements or suggestions into their highway overlay district, so that they're very receptive in working with the municipalities.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and I guess my question now is, it's been a few years. Are we comfortable? Are there any suggestions from the council that, maybe we reach back out to the county and say, hey, would you mind tweaking this a little bit here or there? And
We probably should wait until our PDO is ripe.
They're independent activities, I believe, slightly independent. In other words, we can recommend to the county, based upon new criteria or the future going forward, maybe minor changes and/or some changes to their highway overlay district.
What changes would you recommend?
There are a few uses that may not be what we would want within their highway overlay district. Their highway overlay district does restrict uses from the normal C2, for example, or excuse me, B2. It also has other criteria as far as parking and so forth, but oddly enough, or I don't exactly know how this works, but the county highway overlay district only applies to land within 400 feet of the highway. So these parcels, some of these parcels are rather large.
Right.
I don't know whether those uses and those criteria apply to the first 400 feet of that parcel and the rest of it can be different. That may require some discussion with the county as to their interpretation of that.
Yeah, so for instance, like landscaping or lighting requirements would be different in the first 400 feet than maybe the back 400 feet or whatever is left of the parcel. So it could be possible that the lower lighting is required at the front rather than the back of the building. And most of the buildings will be within 400 feet of the roadway though. So we could do this a number of ways. I think this is an area that Jack has spent a lot of time on and is focused on. Jack and Alex and I can get together and come up with some potential changes that we could request to the county, and Alex and I can reach out to them. We could schedule this for another work session and have those hashed out then. We could do it a number of different ways.
I'm comfortable with your initial suggestion there, for you, Jack and Alex.
Yeah,
And
there's
then-
not
and then-
I don't think we're looking for wholesale changes. I think the county has been very, very good about their highway overlay district. As a matter of fact, there's only a few things that we could suggest. They may or may not apply because they may be unique to the Pinehurst requirements, and they can tell us that if they feel that way.
A couple of questions. I'm not sure whether these are linked or not. We're also, in addition to the PDO update, we're going to look at the comp plan. Is there anything we should change in the comp plan as setting the background to this?
In my opinion, no, we don't need to change anything in the comp plan. The comp plan contemplates the potential for a highway overlay district on this focus area, and that's all that's sufficient right now, in my opinion.
I agree with what Jack said before. They're two independent
Yep.
issues.
Is there any role for the SMPO in this discussion? Or is this strictly a county and village zoning discussion?
I think it's only zoning. And honestly, it's the same people. So
Right. Is there any role in the county land use plan which could affect this?
That's a good question. I really don't know. That's something to keep an eye on.
I think they're supposed to get the recommendations from the study committee. I think the commissioners are
This
supposed to get
month,
it this
yeah.
week, and they will then begin their deliberations of what to do with that. But
They may or may not be making recommendations relative to changing the highway overlay district,
And that might
criteria.
be a good opportunity to address it with them. It's like, okay, you're looking at land use in general. As you're looking, consider some of these potential changes.
As you're approaching this, and I agree with the idea of getting together and just looking at it, but I think that one of the first questions, if not the first question, is what problems do we have with this? Because right now, I don't know of any problems. And so happy to look at it, but before we decide we're going to approach something, let's make sure that we actually have what we think is a problem to be addressed.
Yeah, there's no immediate problem, but I just believe that we owe it to ourselves to try to make sure that land use in close proximity to our residential areas is reasonably compatible.
And I mean it in that vein, Jack, okay? I mean it in the vein that let's analyze this and look and see if in the planning process something is planned that we think is an error that doesn't fit within what we think is appropriate.
Right.
And I got no problem with looking at that, but that needs to be the first question.
Yeah.
What part of it is a problem?
I had a question related to that. The current items we have, the setbacks and the height restrictions and the parking there, is there anything we would adjust with those as we think about this? Because we're talking about a skinny portion of land, and
Are you
Yeah,
talking
those are the-
about in our ETJ on the Pinehurst area?
yes.
Yeah, I think that is something that should be looked at by Kimley Horn for a potential overlay for our area.
Right, I agree. In other words, they would look at our office professional district standards and see whether they need some adjustment. This is different from having an overlay district. By the way, if we do an overlay district, we have other highways. We have 15501 North extending up to Carthage. So maybe it may or may not apply in that area also.
That could be focus area 12 or something.
Right. We can make a new focus area.
Would the 35-foot height restriction still apply?
Well, that is the same restriction that's in the highway overlay district for the county, as a matter of fact. And it's similar to ours. So we're very compatible in a lot of respects.
If I lived at Pine Wild, which I don't, I wouldn't want to see 5-story buildings constructed along there, so.
I think they're more concerned about the use and landscaping and so forth. Those were the major concerns in the past that the Pinewell residents were concerned about. They didn't want a high traffic, high volume use if at all possible. Now that's easier said than done sometimes, but
That would explain the attraction of office professional for it rather than
right.
um,
Fast
commercial.
food restaurant.
Yeah.
Nightclubs.
And actually, just for orientation, I know Patty asked a question before. This map goes farther west, so that where it says zoned B2 on the west side right there, that's actually the church. Okay?
I think this is the
Yeah,
gate.
yeah, that's the gate right there. And so
Okay.
that where it says zoned B2, that's the First Baptist Church
Thank you.
and their parking lot right there. So this goes farther west than the other map does. And so as you start going east on 211, you run into Juniper Lake Road. And that intersection between the times of about 7:30 to 9 o'clock is very busy.
Oh, yeah.
Ask me how I know.
Sure.
But there's a time on there, and that I know is a concern in the traffic patterns, but also when, as Jack mentioned, the aesthetics of some of the businesses that are there. And I don't know what's going to be developed on the southern side. It's kind of hard. A lot of that is low in there. It's not an area that I personally would like to select if I were doing a business. Also, it's a 55-mile-an-hour highway that's on there, as Jack mentioned. They're looking at not having too many cuts on there. I think one of the reasons you see development in where it says Zone B2, C2 in there, because that area is developed a fair amount. And that's because you have access through Juniper Lake Road, not just the highway. So.
Oh, yeah. I see now. Okay. That's helpful. I get that. Well, so the action item out of this would be Doug's suggestion of you all, Jack, you and
So in
him and
other
Alex
words-
just get together and put some flesh on the discussion, and then we'll take it from there. You can come back and let us know.
Yep.
Okay.
Sure. Happy to do that.
Everyone, we okay with that, gang? All right. Discussion ended on that. Let's go to item B, the discussion regarding the resident and business surveys. I think we've discussed this in the past of whether they're too frequent and the question makeup and all that. And Doug, you have some suggestions and thoughts, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so at the retreat, we discussed this a little bit, and I think the consensus was it was too long. There was fatigue by the time you started. You didn't want to finish. So I took the existing survey and I shrunk it. I was roughly trying to do it in half. Not that that was a magical number, but I figured like 4 pages is a lot easier to do than 8. And so I have provided a draft with that for you to review. And then also I think we should discuss how often we want to do this. So we have been doing it annually. Most other communities that I looked at do it less frequently. Every other year I think would be appropriate for us. I think actually I'm told originally here the plan was to do it every 3 years. And then for some reason turned it to every year. I think every other year would be appropriate. It is a little bit expensive. It's about $20,000 to run the resident survey. And I'm not sure that we get $20,000 worth of value from doing it every single year. But that's certainly something we can discuss, and we can dive into the meat of the survey if you'd like, or we can kind of do it offline. If you have suggestions, you're more
I'm
than
in,
willing to share
I'm
them
in
with
total
me.
agreement about the frequency of it. I think every other year is just fine for the village our size and the range of issues in general. We're not, there's not these brand new issues that are so, if there's so time sensitive that we got to do a survey. If we have to, we can always request one. But I think 2 years is ripe. That's on the community survey. I've always been a little skeptical of the whole business survey, so I'll ask my colleagues what their thoughts are there. But that's my feeling on the community survey.
Yeah. To move on to the business survey, that's about $5,000, and the margin of error on that is so large. It means very, very little. I think it's important that we reach out to our businesses and we, solicit ideas and comments from them. But paying someone else to do it when the scientific data coming back is not scientific, I don't think we need to do that. So I think we could do it ourselves with an online survey tool.
I think we could also, with the business survey, have more directed questions, that will give us actionable answers. Because sometimes, it's pointless to ask a question unless you know what you're going to do with the answer. And with the business survey, I think we can have more focused questions that'll help us make some action, take action where necessary.
First of all, Doug, I think you're selling yourself short. I actually counted in your revision 53 questions, not counting the demographic stuff at the back, and it's over 150. So I think you cut it by 2/3, which is good. I'd be happy with skipping this year and taking this up at the retreat. So I think particularly with respect to the business survey, but even the residential survey, the first question is, what do we want to get? And not just action, but what do we want to learn? And maybe each of us could provide a list of 8 or 10 things or something like that that we could pull together now in anticipation of October, whenever. That will tell us really what are the questions that we want to ask, as opposed to, and I think you did a very good job culling down, taking a lot of the things out that were not actionable. So this is a vast improvement, but I think we can do better still. And in particular on the business survey, I think if I went to the 8 or 10 business owners that I know the best and asked them, are these the things that are really on your mind? I think they would almost uniformly say no. And so I think that needs to be redesigned in a more significant way, and I would agree with you. I don't know that we need to pay an outside organization to do that. I think it is more the effort that we would take to be in front of them, almost doing it certainly in the core village one-on-one, as opposed to mailing them a piece of paper. I know we have a lot of businesses not located in the core business, and I don't know exactly how far out the ripples can go there, but I think that I think we would do well to redesign the business survey significantly and give some thought to that. And I think that would be appreciated by the business owners. They have some real concerns that this doesn't really do anything.
So if I'm capturing everyone's thoughts, we I think are in agreement that we do the community survey every other year.
I agree with that.
We drop the business survey that we're paying for now, and we come up with something that's more localized, that we think will be more interactive and responsive with the actual owners that we know, rather than have this third party between us and our businesses. And that we either get back to you maybe with some firmer comments on your editing. I think one thing we might want to think about is juxtaposing the list of hot topics we have on our website with questions. So each hot topic has at least one question that's in there, rather than.
Yeah, and I did try to leave some blank space for questions that would be specific to that year that we could
Right.
address something. that is a hot topic.
So is that where we are as a group, or does anyone have any other thoughts? I mean, we save some money. I think we actually will be interacting with our merchants better because they were rather critical of the business survey in the past anyway. And maybe the residents, the community survey with a fewer questions and some questions that are more topical, that may drive up the response a little from those folks. So rather than always meeting the 700 number or so, we may crash through that significantly. So how's that
I
sound?
agree with everything you're saying. I want to just do a little editing on the verbiage. We are not canceling the business survey. We're replacing it
Yes. Oh,
with
yeah.
something else that we've got going on, and it's something I'd like to be briefed on later on as it's developed, because yes, we need to do that on there. But
I hear
agree.
you. Yeah,
Everything's
that's a
being
better
said.
word.
I think that will be received very favorably by the business community.
And we also have some time to roll this out in a way that has them in on the takeoff. So we want them there on the landing. So
As I was reading the amendments to the Pinehurst to the surveys there, and I appreciate that, it reminded me of a fun quote from Winston Churchill, which says, "This report, by its very length, defends itself against the risk of being read." I always enjoyed his quotes, but I think we need to make sure that we have effective things that are not too long and have people engaged with. Thank you.
that's a good one. Okay, other comments or thoughts for Doug on this?
So just to clarify, do we want to look at this again at retreat time next fall, winter?
That's for sure. What we may want to look at before them sometime is if you get enough feedback from us, what a sort of a closer final draft might look like.
Yeah, I think it's on each of us to come up with our thoughts, let Doug collate them, see where the commonalities are, and go from there.
Yeah, if you want to look at it now while it's fresh, and then we can deep dive into it in the retreat.
And would the biz survey also, we do it every other year?
That's
Is
what I
that
would
your thought?
intend to do. That we
And,
just
and we would do it on the same year. We wouldn't do it off year. Okay. Okay. So that's great. Okay. See if I have anything else here. Nope. That was that. All right. Does anyone have any other topic they want to raise before we go to the favorite item on all our?
I just
The
had one
motion
other, I
to
just
adjourn?
had one other
Go ahead.
general item. Well, we all received an email from a business person regarding the article in the pilot on housing shortfall. And I was actually at the More 100 meeting where the gentleman saw the presentation of the full. And I don't know that, frankly, there's a lot that we can do in that area. We don't have the power to regulate it. We don't have the power to do means testing or what have you, and I'm not even sure that the forces of the open market would let us do that anyway. But what it got me thinking about in anticipation of a presentation, which I think is going to planning and zoning here shortly and may ultimately come before us on rezoning. You may have seen there was something in the Triangle Business Journal that D.R. Horton has acquired a parcel of land adjacent to number 10, plans to build 500 homes in Aberdeen. And of course, we have the Land Use Study Committee wrapping up its work, and there are going to be some issues here that are certainly beyond our ability to entirely control or influence. But I would hope that there is a way for us, formally or informally, to be dialoguing more with the county commissioners as they decide what to do, and with the other municipalities, whether it's through Triangle J, whatever the mechanism is. These are going to be pretty profound potential changes to our region, to the county, some of which will have direct impact on Pinehurst, others of which will not. Certainly 500 homes being built down Route 5 is going to have an impact on Pinehurst. We have no ability to influence what Aberdeen will do with that. So I just think we need to be thinking about that. We need to be thinking how we can have productive dialogue with people And I have no idea what the end game is, but I think the time to be starting those conversations is soon.
Comments? Dr.
Yeah,
Moran?
I would agree with that. I've frequently mentioned, we're talking growth and things, that we're not an island here. Okay, we like to think sometimes that we are, but we're affected by all the other things that are going on in the county and the different townships around us. When you look at the development that's going on in Morganton Road in Southern Pines, you know, I don't know exactly how big the apartment complex in there, but it looks like about 600 new apartments that are coming in. The infrastructure that's there, and with the different things we've had in the past, it's not only the road systems, which are going to be overwhelmed, that we have, because they're already pretty much overwhelmed is what's happening, but water is going to be a main restriction, and that's not been solved. They have a bunch of different ideas. They're talking about bringing water in from Deep River, which is a misnomer because it's certainly not deep, and you're putting in water from a long way. But there are a lot of challenges that the county is dealing with, and so yes, I fully agree that we need to be talking with them and being agents for positive um, guidance and change as to what goes on. We are not an island, and we're going to be affected by all this. So I agree totally.
Schools would be another one completely outside our jurisdiction, but not trivial.
I do think we should remind ourselves that where we do have an impact is in our ETJ and that part of our village that abuts our neighbors. So those 500 homes that are being referenced are on the other side of the Pinehurst corporate limit. So when you enter Pinehurst, where we have some vacant land that people are looking at, we need to give some serious thought as to the type of development that we are going to authorize there. Because, as we say, the people who are moving here, a lot of them are going to be shopping in our village, which is good for our merchants and our local economy, but and some will be going other ways, but they'll be there. And so we can, as much as we can impact our own destiny, I think we should be doing that. And dialogues with other communities and developers is a worthwhile effort.
I'm going to take one step further with you, John, and just say that this goes into the idea of being a good neighbor. You know, being a good an advocate for positive change and what goes on. And it has been told to me from various sources of folks that are not necessarily from Pinehurst that they sometimes question that of Pinehurst. Okay, are we the good neighbors? Are we really engaging like we need to? And I think we need to be more proactive with that, and working with these different entities, specifically with the county, on trying to make sure that we're positive agents for change that occurs.
I was just going to add, we do have our Tri-Cities meeting that is coordinated through Central Pines Regional Council. And we have talked about housing shortages there and zoning issues. So that might be an appropriate way to do that and maybe invite the county to participate in some of those meetings to address issues like this.
Good idea. All right. Any other comments? Well, I'll entertain the most favorite motion of the evening from somebody.
Motion to adjourn the work session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Aye.
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 Motion adopted. Good night.